Good morning. Hallelujah. Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Hallelujah. This is the 6th Sunday of Easter. My name is Gordon Blue. Welcome to Holy Trinity Church in Juneau, Alaska. The gospel text appointed for today is once again from the 15th chapter of John. It begins, Jesus said to his disciples, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love." A question immediately arises for me. Here's Jesus once again confidently using the metaphor of the loving Father as he has on so many other occasions. What was the basis of that confidence? How did he know it would work, that they would identify it and identify with it? What were the examples of fatherly love in the lives of Jesus' first disciples that would give him such confidence? Now, Luke wrote that Jesus gave an example of the extravagant love of the Father in the parable of the prodigal son. It's a parable. And all three of the synoptic Gospels tell of Jairus, a leader in the synagogue, who falls at Jesus' feet and pleads for him to save Jairus' daughter from death. It's a demonstration of love indeed. But among the 12 apostles, what do we have? Thomas was the twin without a twin. No mention of other relatives. Simon Peter and Andrew were brothers. No mention of a father. Mark says that James and John were brothers, nicknamed Sons of Thunder by Jesus, which may be a reflection on their characters. But it might also have been a comment about the behavior of their father, Zebedee. The other James is identified as son of Alphaeus, which distinguishes him from the fishermen, but does little else. And Bartholomew means son of the furrow, or son of the farmer. In addition to these, we do learn about Zechariah, who was the grateful father of the infant John, the one who became the baptizer. And of course, we learn about Joseph, the adoptive father of Jesus, who raised him as his own child. There's not much literal information in the Gospels about fatherhood in the first century. We don't have much information about the daily life of the household from historical sources either. Cultural history has a certain depth, but the meshing of people by conquest, the shifting institutions of slavery and concubinage, and the accretions of 2 millennia of imperial governance, these may shape our understanding quite differently than that which was held by the early disciples. Jesus said, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love." Abide's an important word in John's vocabulary. Last week we read it. It was used a couple of times in the passage from the first letter of John. One, for instance, was at chapter 4, verse 16. So we have known and believe the love that God has for us. God is love. And those who abide in love abide in God, and God abides in them. Abide is generally taken to mean acceptance or even tolerance, as in, I can't abide that taste. But at 1 John 4:19, he wrote, we love because he first loved us. So maybe tolerate my love misses that mark. Accept my love, then, may do. But there's an implication of duration here also, as in, dwell in my love, live in the presence of my love. Although we read John 14, verse 8, a few Sundays ago, we're still reading Jesus' teaching on the same occasion. It's all been the night of the Last Supper. In this verse, John 14:18, Jesus makes an important promise. He said, I will not leave you orphaned. I am coming to you. Perhaps we have it upside down. Perhaps the gospel message of the love of the Father takes wing in response to a lack of the love of fathers in first century Mediterranean culture. Now, there's been extensive focus on the involvement of fathers in the family, and great efforts have been made to improve loving communication in this culture in the last couple of decades. That's good work. But we shouldn't assume that the problem was the same then that we have been dealing with now. The one we've identified, at least. Research by John T. Fitzgerald made a different identification. He identified that the lack of public health care, low life expectancy, warfare, high birthing mortality, and the differences in age at marriage, younger women marrying older men, resulted in many orphans in the first century. He cited an analysis that found that among 14 to 15-year-old boys, more than 40% were fatherless orphans. That is a different problem than we have been dealing with in these last decades. The psychiatrist Ian McGilchrist says, metaphor is how we understand everything, and understanding is mediated by metaphors. In other words, the only way we can understand anything is in terms of something else that we think we already understand. And it's making the analogy, which is what metaphor does, that enables us to go, I see, I get it. He goes on. Now, if you think that metaphor is just one of those dispensable decorations that you could add to meaning, it's kind of nice, but probably a distraction from real meaning. Well, you've got it upside down. Because if you don't understand the metaphor, you haven't understood the meaning. Literal meaning, however, is a peripheral, diminished version of the richness of metaphorical understanding. So perhaps we've had it upside down. Perhaps the gospel message of the love of the Father takes wing in response to a lack of abiding love in the 21st century dominant culture. Jesus said, "I have made known to you everything that I've heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you." "You did not choose me, but I chose you" is not a declaration of philosophical determinism. There's a gift. "I have made known to you everything that I've heard from my Father." And there's a greater gift. "I chose you." That is the declaration of an abiding love. Yesterday, May 8, we remembered Julian of Norwich, who passed to the Church Triumphant in 1416. She wrote the Revelations of Divine Love, which was the first book in English by a woman. Canticle R and Canticle S are drawn from her work. This is Canticle R. It is a metaphor of God the Mother. God chose to be our mother in all things, and so made the foundation of his work most humbly and most pure in the Virgin's womb. God, the perfect wisdom of all, arrayed himself in this humble place. Christ came into our poor flesh to share a mother's care. Our mothers bear for us and bear us for pain and for death. Our true mother, Jesus, bears us for joy and endless life. Christ carried us within her in love and travail until the full time of her passion. And when all was completed and she had carried us so for joy, still all this could not satisfy the power of her wonderful love. All that we owe is redeemed in truly loving God, for the love of Christ works in us. Christ is the one whom we love. Perhaps we had it upside down. The love of a mother is an abiding love. Abide in love. Julian also wrote, and this is part of Canticle S, Christ revealed our frailty and our falling, our trespasses and our humiliations. Christ also revealed his blessed power, his blessed wisdom and love. He protects us as tenderly and as sweetly when we're in greatest need. He raises us in spirit and turns everything to glory and joy without ending. God is the ground and the substance, the very essence of nature. God is the true father and mother of natures. We're all bound to God by nature, and we're all bound to God by grace. And this grace is for all the world, because it is our precious mother, Christ. For this fair nature was prepared by Christ for the honor and nobility of all, and for the joy and bliss of salvation. Perhaps we've had it upside down. The crushing of nations by conquest, the shifting bonds of slavery and exploitation, and the accretions of 2 millennia of imperial economics may have shaped our understanding quite differently than that held by the early disciples. Jesus' command. It's not an imperative of dominance. It is the loving request of a friend. He said, "This is my request, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." When we live for others, we're no longer servants of dominance, but of love. When we act like friends of Jesus, our lives have meaning and purpose. When we abide in the love of God, we lose our burdens of shame and guilt, and we can love one another. And Jesus said, "I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete." It is, you see, the love of a mother. Happy Mother's Day, and may your joy be complete.